Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting for the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure will now come to order. Will the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown May. Here. Assemblyman Ellison. Present. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblyman Miller. Present. Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblyman Roberts. Here. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Here. Assemblyman Watts. Here. Assemblyman Wheeler. Here. Assemblyman Yeager. Here. Chair Monroe Moreno.
And I am here. I thank you all for your patience. We're at that time of the session where things kind of run longer than sometimes we expect them to. We have a number of items on our work session, and so without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it since we're running late. And the first item on our work session will be Senate Bill 18, and I will turn it over to our committee policy analyst to discuss the measure.
Thank you. Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst, for the record. Senate Bill 18, in its first revision, revises provisions governing penalties for certain violations relating to public utilities. The measure is sponsored by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. It was first heard before this committee on May 6, 2021. Senate Bill 18 increases the maximum allowable administrative fines imposed by the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, or the PUCN, for violation of statutes relating to public utilities. The maximum amounts are increased for both daily fines and a fine for any related series of violations. The bill also authorizes an administrative fine for the submittal of information that is materially false or misleading, and which the person knew or should have known using reasonable care and diligence was materially inaccurate. If the PUCN determines certain violations are knowing and willful or detrimental to public health and safety, SB 18 allows for higher maximum fines. Certain limits on administrative fines do not restrict the PUCN's authority to require public utilities to restore funding to accounts and programs as necessary to achieve compliance with statute, regulation, or orders of the PUCN. The measure also increases the allowable administrative fine from $500 to $50,000 for certain violations of Chapter 704, Regulation of Public Utilities generally, of Nevada revised statutes, and for a failure to obey decisions, orders, or regulations of the PUCN. Senate Bill 18 adds to the factors the PUCN must take into consideration when determining the amount of an administrative fine to ensure it is proportional to the violation. The additional factors include, but are not limited to, number one, the nature and circumstances of the violation, including actual or potential financial or public health and safety impacts. Number two, willfulness. Number three, good faith efforts to detect and voluntarily disclose violations to the PUCN. Number four, good faith efforts to attempt to achieve compliance following notification of violations and to prevent the reoccurrence of similar violations in future. Number five, history of compliance and noncompliance. Number six, the economic benefit or lack thereof to anyone charged. Number seven, the amounts of fines previously assessed by the PUCN for similar violations. And number eight, other factors deemed necessary to determine the reasonableness of the administrative fine. There are no amendments for this committee's consideration, and there are no fiscal notes associated with this measure.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions, comments on the measure before I entertain a motion for do pass? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to do pass. I have a motion from Assemblyman Watts and a second from Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Miller. It's that kind of day. I'm so sorry. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. You know, I probably would have liked to have seen some of these civil penalties be even higher with the amount, with just the kind of violations that we're talking about, but certainly I think progress is being made, and for that reason I'll support the bill.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Ditto.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other discussion, it's been moved by Assemblyman Watts, second by Assemblyman Miller. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. And with those in opposition, please raise your hand, so make sure we get it on the record. We have Assemblyman Wheeler and Assemblyman Ellison, who are our nays. The motion passes. And with that, we will close the work session, and the floor statement will give to Assemblyman Miller. And with that, we will close the work session on SB 17, SB 18. And we will open the work session on SB 59.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 59 in its first revision revises provisions concerning the judicial review of the decisions of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. The measure is sponsored by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. SB 59 was first heard before this committee on May 6, 2021. Senate Bill 59 provides that after service and filing of a reply memorandum by the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and any other respondents in an action seeking judicial review of a final decision of the commission, no further memoranda may be filed. There are no amendments to this measure, and there are no fiscal notes associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or discussions on Senate Bill 59? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a first from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, passes unanimously, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you.
And with that, we will close the work session on Senate Bill 59. And we will open the work session on Senate Bill 259.
Thank you. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 259 in its first revision revises provisions relating to tow cars. The measure was sponsored by Senator Dennis, and it was first heard before this committee on May 6, 2021. Senate Bill 259 requires the Nevada Transportation Authority, or NTA, of the Department of Business and Industry to conduct annual training for compliance enforcement officers employed by the NTA and tow car operators under NTA jurisdiction on any additions or revisions to the laws or regulations governing the licensing and regulation of motor carriers. If no laws or regulations were enacted or revised in the preceding year, the NTA is not required to hold such a training. The first training session must be held no later than October 1st, 2022. The NTA is authorized to adopt regulations to carry out the provisions of this bill. There are no amendments to this measure for the committee's consideration. There has been one fiscal note received by the NTA showing no fiscal impact for the measure as introduced. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments on Senate Bill 259? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Assemblywoman Brown May. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and I will assign the floor statement to Assemblywoman Brown May. And that closes the work session for Senate Bill 259. Moving on to our next bill. We'll open the work session for Senate Bill 285, and our policy analysts will discuss the measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst, for the record. Senate Bill 285 in its first revision revises provisions relating to transportation. The measure is sponsored by Senator Harris, and this measure was first presented before this committee on May 4th, 2021. Senate Bill 285 requires driver training courses to include the rules of the road relating to bicycles, including electric bicycles, electric scooters, and pedestrians. The measure allows a motor vehicle to pass a bicycle or electric scooter in a no passing zone or by crossing the center line of a 2-lane divided road or highway, provided there are no unsafe conditions, prohibitions, or restrictions to overtaking on the left, and the required minimum 3-foot passing distance is maintained. If the right side of the road contains surface hazards or is blocked by objects, or the travel lane is too narrow to accommodate both a motor vehicle and a bicycle, the bill adds an exception to the rule that bicycles and electric scooters ride as far to the right side of the road as possible. A county or regional transportation commission is required to integrate facilities, lanes, routes, and signage for bicycles into plans for construction or maintenance of roads as part of its Complete Streets program, to the extent feasible. With respect to Nevada's Department of Transportation, counties, and regional transportation commissions, the bill expands the scope of the users to be considered in the Complete Streets programs to include users of all abilities and ages. There are no amendments for consideration, and there are no fiscal notes associated with this measure.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions on Senate Bill 285? Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. A second? I'm sorry, first from Assemblywoman Brown May, a second from Assemblyman Miller. Lord have mercy. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note, really appreciative of this measure, and particularly the training of the rules of the road for bicycles. As someone who's recently got into biking in southern Nevada, it can be a little bit concerning to be on the roads out there and realizing that most drivers, I think, don't understand how they're supposed to react. So as a new avid bicyclist, I just want to say thank you to the sponsor for making this part of the training that'll happen, and hopefully we'll be able to cut back on some of these really tragic incidents that happen on our roads.
Assemblyman Ellison.
Cars and bikes get a little close. The only thing I wanted to know is this an enabling bill? And it's a statewide bill, but is it per county, or how do they implement this process?
Are you directing your question to
There's
the art
nobody
legal
here.
or
Oh,
the
there
maker of
she
the
is.
bill?
Yeah,
The sponsor of the bill is here. She can
I
respond to your
didn't see her.
question. Welcome, Senator Harrison.
Good afternoon, committee members, Chairman Ro Moreno. To Senator Dallas Harris, for the record, to you, Assemblyman Ellison, through the chair. The counties have their own, of course, transportation system, regional transportation system down south. We have a northern different transportation system up here. And then, of course, there's the Nevada Department of Transportation. Each transportation entity that currently participates in the Complete Streets program would also have this bill applicable to them. So there's no expansion of who the program would apply to, if that answers your question.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank the sponsor for bringing this forward. As I talked about in the hearing, you know, I've lost people that I know personally to biking accidents, and pedestrian fatalities and bike fatalities are a huge issue in the urban areas in our state. And, you know, anything to bring awareness, if we can save one life, then it's worth every ounce of ink that this bill's written with. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Assemblyman Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had my initial reservations on this bill, but I thought I really liked Dallas, you know, the city of Dallas, not who has this program. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for it. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Assemblyman.
And I'm sure the Senator Dallas Harris appreciates that. All right, members, see no other discussion on the measure. I will entertain a motion to do pass. Okay, there were a lot of, okay. We had the discussion. I did the motion. I did the motion. We already did the motion. It's a long day. Okay. Yes. It's been moved and second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I will assign the floor statement on this one to Assemblyman Roberts. And with that, we will close the work session on Senate Bill 285, and we will open the work session on Senate Bill 288.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst, for the record. Senate Bill 288, in its first revision, revises provisions relating to transportation network companies. The measure was sponsored by Senator Harris. It was first heard before this committee on May 4th, 2021. Senate Bill 288 authorizes providers of monitored autonomous vehicles, or MAVs, to enter into contracts with transportation network companies, or TNCs, to receive connections to potential passengers and related services for a fee in the same way that a driver enters into an agreement with a TNC. A MAV is defined as an autonomous vehicle with a safety engineer in the vehicle at all times while in operation. The measure adds monitored autonomous vehicle provider to the provisions applicable to a driver, including but not limited to accident reports, inspections, insurance, passenger services, and record-keeping requirements. Monitored autonomous vehicle providers must disclose the license plate number of a vehicle to a passenger, and safety engineers may only accept compensation from the MAV provider employing them. A TNC must include information on providers of MAVs in its reports to the Nevada Transportation Authority, or NTA, of the Department of Business and Industry. The measure clarifies that MAVs are not commercial vehicles, and the provisions relating to MAVs do not apply to fully autonomous vehicles or autonomous vehicle network companies that have been permitted by the NTA. There is one amendment proposed for the committee's consideration, which is attached. The proposed amendment would, number 1, replace the term safety engineer with autonomous vehicle operator. Number 2, specify that autonomous vehicle providers have the same duties and obligations to operate the vehicle in a safe manner as drivers providing transportation services. Number 3, require autonomous vehicle providers to carry the minimum amount of insurance required for vehicles providing transportation services through TNCs under subsection 1A of Nevada Revised Statute 690B.470 at all times while the autonomous vehicle is operating. Number 4, remove the term monitored autonomous vehicle provider from subsections 1, 1B, 1C, and 1D of section 22.7. And number 5, amend the effective date to upon passage and approval. There has been one fiscal note submitted by the NTA showing no fiscal impact to the measure as introduced. Thank you.
Thank you, and members, I hope you've all had an opportunity to review the amendment. Are there any questions or discussions on the bill or the amendment? Assemblyman Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation to the sponsors and supporters of the bill for listening to some of the issues and concerns that came up during the hearing and working to address them with this amendment.
Thank you. Assemblyman Wheeler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was going to say amend and do pass, make a motion, and it has nothing to do with any city.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Assemblyman Wheeler, a second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to speak on every bill today because we've got lots of time. I want to repeat my comment, the comments of my colleague, Vice Chair Watts. I really appreciate the work on this. This is an interesting area because we're getting into technology spaces that are creating just new dynamics when it comes to driving and ride sharing. And so I had some concerns about how these things were going to be looked at, insurance-wise and liability-wise, and just really appreciate the hard work of the sponsors and those interested. I think this is a great amendment, takes us in the right direction, so I will very happily be supporting the bill.
Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, as I've voted against probably every autonomous bill in here so far, but I think this has got roots. I think it could take us to the next level, so I support the bill. I'm just hoping that I can get away from some of them others. I'd like to see people working and driving instead of a car driving itself, so thank you.
It's a miracle.
Yes,
He's going
it
to
is.
vote for an autonomous vehicle. All right. So with that, no more discussion. All in favor to amend and do pass, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and I will assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Wheeler. And with that, we will close the work session on Senate Bill 288, and we will open the work session on Senate Bill 371.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst for the record. Senate Bill 371 in its first revision revises provisions relating to motor vehicles. The measure was sponsored by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, and this was first heard before the committee on April 27th, 2021. Senate Bill 371 makes 3 changes to the Vehicle Miles Traveled pilot program currently being conducted by the Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV. The changes: number 1, remove recreational vehicles from the list of vehicles for which odometer readings must be submitted to the DMV. Number 2, prohibit the DMV from disclosing information provided to the DMV under the pilot program to an insurer, self-insurer, or an organization that provides assistance or support to an insurer or self-insurer in connection with certain activities related to motor vehicle insurance. And number 3, authorize the DMV to adopt regulations providing for an administrative fine for failure to report an odometer reading or any other information required by the DMV under the pilot program in a timely manner if required. There are no amendments for this committee's consideration. A fiscal note provided by the Office of Project Management within the DMV shows no fiscal impact for the measures introduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on Senate Bill 371? Assemblyman Wheeler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually going to try not to comment on anything today, but I guess that's not working. But I just wanted to say that I think that a few years ago when we passed the original bill for a study for mileage, I voted against that bill and thought that it was, the beginning of starting to put fines in, and sure enough, here's the fines. And to me, it's an invasion of people's privacy to not make it voluntary for them to give us that information. So I'm going to be a strong no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion on the measure? Go ahead.
Sorry, ma'am. Of all the complaints that I get through my office, this is some of the ones that people are really upset about trying to do their mileage. And in my area, I mean, it's not like Vegas or Washoe that you can just go down the street and go to the doctor or whatever. They got to drive hundreds of miles. So they're just worried about what will happen in the future with this reporting. So I'm a no also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments. Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As someone who worked on establishing this last session, I just want to note a couple things. One being that when we first set this up, we we deliberately made sure that there were no penalties whatsoever. And we heard from the department in the presentation of this bill that about a third of the potential reporting we're getting is either missing or inaccurate. And I've heard a lot of the frankly misconceptions that this was going to lead not to fees but to some sort of new taxes, and that is not the case. And compared with some of the other potential consequences that would be out there, such as not being able to register a vehicle, I think granting the department the ability, if they believe that this is a serious issue, to administer a fine is the lightest way we can go in an effort to make sure that we have robust data on driving patterns in our state. So with that, I'll be supporting the measure.
Thank you so much. And Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the bill, the first two sections of the bill. I like those parts. It's just the fine is an issue for me, the ability to collect fines. I mean, we've been doing a pilot for over a year. I don't know how long we're going to continue to do the pilot to collect data, but the fine issue concerns me, and so I just can't support it. So thank you.
And I appreciate all the comments, and as long as people follow the rules, they don't have to pay the fine. So, hold on. My committee. So with that, I will entertain a motion to do pass. I have a first from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Assemblywoman Brown May. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And would you go ahead and raise your hand for our committee secretary so she'll know exactly who it is? We have Assemblyman Wheeler, Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblyman Levitt, and Assemblyman Ellenson. And with that, the motion passes. And we will close the work session. The floor statement. Actually, it was my bill I carried last session. I'll take the floor statement. We'll close the work session on Senate Bill 371, and we will open the work session on Senate Bill 383.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 383 in its first revision revises provisions relating to electric bicycles. The measure was sponsored by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. It was first heard before this committee on May 4th, 2021. Senate Bill 383 creates and defines 3 classes of electric bicycles based on their specifications. The measure clarifies that electric bicycles are permitted wherever bicycles are permitted, except as otherwise specified or prohibited in federal law. Local governments and state agencies may prohibit the use of electric bicycles on bicycle paths or shared use paths as needed to protect public health and safety or to comply with other laws or obligations, and they may also regulate their use on unsurfaced trails designated for non-motorized use. The bill prohibits persons under 16 years of age from operating a Class 3 electric bicycle, although they may ride as passengers on Class 3 electric bicycles that are equipped to carry passengers, and requires operators and passengers of Class 3 electric bicycles to wear bicycle helmets. New electric bicycles sold in Nevada on or after October 1st, 2021 must comply with federal manufacturing and equipment standards. Further, beginning January 1st, 2022, manufacturers and distributors of electric bicycles must apply a label containing specified information. The measure requires certain equipment on electric bicycles and prohibits tampering with the speed capability or disengagement devices unless the classification label is replaced. Senate Bill 383 adds electric bicycles to the statute protecting property owners against liability for injuries to people or property resulting from recreational bicycling on their property, and to the statute making it a crime to throw objects or substances at a bicycle or to damage or deface a bicycle. There has been a conceptual amendment proposed that would remove both the minimum operator age for Class 3 electric bicycles and the helmet requirement for both operators and passengers, and that amendment follows this bill page. There have been 2 fiscal notes received. Both the Office of Project Management within the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Transportation have determined that there is no fiscal impact with the measure as introduced. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on the bill or the amendment? We'll start with Assemblyman Yeager, and then we'll go to Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this one is actually a question about the amendment. So the conceptual amendment, I see that it keeps subsection 2, which talks about people under the age of 16 being able to ride as a passenger, but then we're also striking subsection 1, which indicates that someone under the age of 16 could operate an electric bicycle. So I'm just wondering about the necessity of keeping subsection 2 in the amendment. Is there a reason that that would be there? It seems maybe to not be necessary. And so I just wanted to get a little bit of clarity on why the amendment retains subsection 2, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Susan Fisher with McDonald Carano, speaking on behalf of People for Bikes Coalition. This was a non-lawyer doing this proposed amendment, myself, and we just wanted to clarify that there could be a passenger on the bicycle in case there was any question. We're fine with it either way if that stays or goes. Thank you.
Follow-up?
And I appreciate the answer, and again, I'm sorry I didn't reach out a little bit earlier. It's just been a little bit of a crazy day today, but I guess I would just, I don't think we need to figure this out now, but just maybe in consultation with legal to figure out if we need to maintain that language or not, because it seemed to me to be clear that if you're 16 or under and you can drive it, that you would logically also be able to be a passenger. So perhaps we can just work that out in the drafting, and just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something else going on that I wasn't aware of. So thank you so much for the response.
Assemblywoman Brown-May?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was relative to the same thing. I just want to make sure that we are absolutely not mandating helmets for either the operator or the passenger. And then I have a second question relative to the box at the top where it says fiscal note. And the effect on local government increases or newly provides for a term of imprisonment in a county jail or detention facility. I'm just curious to know if somebody could clarify that.
All right, legal, if you can weigh in on that?
Hi, this is Jessica Dummer with the LCB Legal Division. I believe the fiscal note may be based on the bill itself, and those fiscal notes are based on a bill as introduced. So those never change, even if the amendment is changed to take out this prohibition.
Did that answer your question? Perfect. Assemblyman Levitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Although this bill still makes me a liar to my children, I appreciate the sponsor of the bill taking into consideration our concerns with the age limit and the helmet requirement as to follow the current law. So I appreciate the work that was done on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Assemblyman Yeager, did you want to remove that section from the bill while we're here in the work session? Will you go ahead and?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So I would make a motion to amend and do pass, but with the note that the conceptual amendment will also delete that subsection 2 of section 8 about the passenger. So the entire section 8 would be deleted. So it would be an amend and do pass with that caveat.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion from Assemblyman Yeager, a second from Assemblyman Watts. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I just want to appreciate the work from the sponsors of this measure to address some of the comments and concerns that came up during the hearing. We've had discussions about helmet use, and I think that for where we're at in general, this makes sense to ensure that the implementation of this bill is smooth. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for working on this change, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you so much. See no other comments? All in favor of the motion to amend and do pass, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have one in opposition, Assemblyman Ellenson. The motion passes, and I will assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Yeager. And with that, we will close the work session for Senate Bill 383, and we will open the work session for Senate Bill 387.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst, for the record. Senate Bill 387 in its first revision provides for the regulation of certain suppliers that provide an inmate calling service. The measure was sponsored by Senator Harris and first presented before this committee on April 29, 2021. Senate Bill 387 requires the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, or PUCN, to adopt regulations governing the provision of inmate calling services, including a procedure to establish rate caps and limitations on ancillary service charges and certain other taxes and fees for intrastate calls made by inmates incarcerated in a public or private correctional facility in Nevada. The PUCN must also adopt regulations for approving: number 1, a schedule or tariff that exceeds the established rate caps, or number 2, charges that fail to comply with the prescribed limitations. The rate caps set by the PUCN must not exceed the rates set by the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, for interstate and international calls by inmates, and other limitations set by the PUCN must be consistent with the limitations set by the FCC for interstate and international calls by inmates. Before providing an interstate inmate calling service, a telecommunication provider must file a schedule or tariff with the PUCN specifying and seeking approval for the rates and terms and conditions applicable to its inmate calling service. The PUCN must approve any schedule or tariff that does not exceed a rate cap and that complies with the limitations prescribed by the FCC. The PUCN may also approve a schedule or tariff that exceeds a rate cap or fails to comply with the limitations prescribed by the FCC in accordance with the regulations of the PUCN governing approvals of exceptions. The rate caps and limitations on charges must be reviewed annually by the PUCN and revised as needed. A supplier of inmate calling services must submit a revised schedule or tariff within 30 days after the PUCN revises a rate cap or limitation if the supplier's schedule or tariff on file exceeds the new rate cap or does not comply with the new limitation. Current suppliers have 30 days after the effective date of the regulations adopted by the PUCN pursuant to this bill to file a schedule or tariff with the PUCN. A supplier of inmate calling services must publish its rates, terms, and conditions by posting such information on its publicly available website and by having a copy available for public inspection at its principal Nevada office. The supplier must also provide a written copy of the rates, pricing, and terms and conditions to the inmate with the first billing statement or invoice. There has been one amendment proposed to add Assembly members Cameron C.H. Miller, Chandra Summers Armstrong, and Howard Watts as non-primary sponsors, and to add juvenile detention facilities to the definition of correctional facility. There are no fiscal notes associated with this measure. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions or discussions on Senate Bill 387? Okay, Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you. You know, and I thank the sponsor of this bill, and the only reason I see these charges, one of my businesses, I got the phone bill and there's an extra $360 charge on it, and it was from one of my employees receiving a call, several calls from her son. I couldn't believe how many minutes was on there and how high it was. So finally we had to block the calls. Now we got to pay to have the calls blocked from any kind of a facility like that. So it's right, and I think that's a great bill, and maybe I hope it can address that, because the people that need to talk to somebody and them fees are so high, it's awful. But thank you.
I would agree with you, Assemblyman. Any other questions, comments, or discussions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, second. A second from Assemblyman Wheeler. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor to amend and do pass? Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. And with that, members, we're at the end of our formal agenda. Brings us to public comment, and I will ask our broadcast staff if we have anyone on the line wishing to make public comment today before we adjourn.
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
All right, with that, members, that concludes today's meeting. I thank you all for your patience for the late start. I will remind you that we do have our committee party tonight at 6 p.m. It's 6 p.m. And we also have an agenda posted for tomorrow at the call of the chair for any other matters that we did not get taken care of today. I will let you know as soon as I possibly can if we are going to have a meeting. But with that, this meeting is adjourned.